Hello out there, and in front of you today is the HK Exemplar, and this is a knife made by Hogue Knives in collaboration with HK. They now have the HK line, and I have to say thank you to the people at Hogue for sending this to our pass-around group to check out. Very cool of them to do, because I was excited to get this locking mechanism in hand, that's for sure. And today we're going to be talking about the things about the knife that you won't see in the specs, the things the specs won't say. And there are 4 of them that I think are pretty interesting and important to pass along. And so that's what we're going to get into. And we're going to start with number 1, obviously being the axis lock mechanism. And Hogue is not calling it the axis lock. It's actually called the Able lock for Ambidextrous Bar Lock Enhanced. And basically, it is an axis lock, though, and I think what happened, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but when the patent for the axis lock expired, Benchmade still kept the patent and the rights to the name axis lock. So everyone who's using this kind of locking mechanism has to come up with their own name for it. And Hogue's is the Able lock, which is perfectly satisfactory, but we are essentially talking about the same kind of mechanism. And the big question, I mean, seeing that this is a big selling point, I'd say, for the knife, the big question is this lock on par with what Benchmade does with the axis lock? And my answer is 100% yes. Yes, it is as good as any other axis lock that I've seen, if not better in a lot of ways. And the thing that really impresses me about it is just how easy it is to actuate. If you take a look at it, the machining and the shape of it, it's just really easy to get your finger on. And also around this G10 here, you can see that it's just really nicely opened up. So you can one finger it from either side, and it's very smooth, opening and closing. And yeah, I'm very impressed. Now, that was one of my big concerns was this going to be on point, and it definitely is. So we don't have any kind of like gimmicky, hey, come get this new knife. It's a new locking mechanism, just like the Benchmade. No, I mean, they delivered. They have executed it very, very well. And they did request for the pass around that we not disassemble this knife, which for me is a bummer because I'd love to be able to take it apart and check it out from the inside. And just see if there's anything like different about it, because it does seem to be just like super smooth right here. But obviously, since it is a pass around, they don't want anyone taking it apart and then messing up, putting it back together and giving somebody a bad impression of the product. So I understand that completely. Hopefully I will get one of these in my hand to keep sometime soon, and then we'll take a closer look at it probably. But as it is now, I'm very impressed with the execution of it, and yeah, it locks up beautifully, and the action is good, so can't really ask for anything more besides that. The next thing is all about the handle scales, the G10. So yes, you will see that it's G10 in the specs, but you won't see the quality of the G10 and the aspects of it that are just a little bit different. When I first handled this knife at Blade Show West, I was with my buddy Drew, and he ended up buying one of these, and we were like playing with all the different versions that they had, and I think one of the salespeople was talking to us about the knife, and they said, yeah, the G10 this, and I stopped them, and I said, I don't think this is G10, because I'd had the knife in my hand, I was checking out the blade, I was checking out the locking mechanism, but it didn't look like G10. I mean, if you check that out, I mean, that does not look like G10, right? But when you get it up close, it 100% is. And I'm not going to say that that's a great thing or a bad thing. It's just very different. I don't know that I've ever seen this kind of machining into G10 before. And what I like about it is it's a distinct decision to make function more important than form. You know, a G10 handle scale can look 1,000 different ways. It can be matte, it can be peel ply and like really grippy the way cold steel makes it. This actually looks a little bit more like an FRN kind of scale, an FRN kind of texture. And I think what HK and Hogue have collaborated to make is something that's just going to be very good and comfortable and grippy in hand. And instead of doing something like fancy that, you know, might make the knife look more expensive, they really valued the fact that they wanted to make something that was functional. If it got wet or if you're wearing gloves or no matter what the situation, that you're going to be able to get this knife in hand comfortably. And it's a very, very comfortable knife. So kudos to them. And if you do ever have the opportunity to check this knife out, I suggest you do it because, yeah, it is just something a little bit different. And I don't know that it's going to be for everybody, but I am impressed with the decision making, if nothing else. Moving on, the third thing is it's all about jimping and more ergos. You know, the thing that you're not going to see in the specs is just the way this knife feels in hand. There are a couple aspects that might not be perfect. If you look at where the blade meets the handle, it is a little bit recessed right here. And so if you're trying to like really transition from the jimping back here onto the blade, there is that like lip that isn't really the best. It's not what I would be looking for. But what makes up for it is this depression right here. When I first saw the knife, I was a little taken aback because I'm not really one for harpoons, even though I do really like this knife. But the difference here, I think, is that this thumb depression or finger depression, I think, is a little bit more intentional for the way it's used and not just for looks. You know, because you could, if you wanted to, you know, choke all the way up and use it for fine detail, like this is extremely comfortable. But also what I found was just gripping here for like pull cuts was really good, just really good. And it was extremely comfortable in that way. And so this, while it might not be the most attractive aspect of the knife, it's functionally attractive, which is sort of, I don't know, it's sort of the theme of the knife is that it's functionally attractive. The last thing I want to talk about is the clip. It's the only thing that doesn't have a real positive spin on it. I guess the positive thing about the clip that you will see in the specs is that it is 4-position. The one thing that I don't really like about it is just for how long it is. Even though the retention is good, it'll slide around in your pocket a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of height here. So I mean, I wore this to work a couple times where I wore slacks and it slid around in my pocket. It wasn't really the most secure thing. It wasn't going to fly out of the pocket, but it wasn't stationary in the pocket. So definitely want to let you know about that. I do think it is a pretty good looking clip, relatively deep carry. I don't know if there is anything aftermarket about it yet, but you know, as far as like being able to get a secondary clip, I don't know if these holes will fit anything, but maybe eventually they'll do something. But regardless, those are the things that you need to know about the knife that you won't see in any specs. Overall, guys, I'm pretty darn impressed with it. I'm really impressed with the execution. I think at $125, we have a nice USA-made product. I like the 154M steel. It's a good knife. You know, it's a good knife, and the value is there in that it's going to perform and it's going to live up to what you need it to be, I think. So any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. Appreciate you watching, guys, though. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one.